Alrighty, we are right at 12:30, so I'm going to get started to respect everybody's time. So welcome everyone. We're excited to have both members and non-members with us today from the MCHS. For those of you who do not know us, we are the Milwaukee County Historical Society, and we are a historical membership society here in downtown Milwaukee. We do represent all of the The mission of the MCHS is to recognize and preserve our local history in promoting a greater appreciation of Milwaukee County's heritage. The Historical Society hopes to develop a better understanding of the issues and challenges facing Milwaukee County today. And like I said, the MCHS is located at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in downtown Milwaukee. The Museum, Research Center, Archives, and Collections are all at that site. Through this virtual program series, Lunch and Learn, we hope to bring the MCHS to your personal computers, your living rooms, your office spaces, things like that, and dive into a variety of topics centered around Milwaukee's history and culture. Today's program is Milwaukee Shipwrecks with James Heinz. My name is Olivia Hoff, and I'm the MCHS Programs Manager, and I will be hosting this program. And before we get started, a few reminders on using Zoom. Please keep your microphone muted. You can mute yourself by clicking the microphone button in the bottom left of your screen. There should be a red slash through the microphone. If you have a question, you can write it in the chat. Whether it be tech questions, I can help you with that as well, or when we have our Q&A session at the very end. So be sure to select everyone as a recipient when you're texting in the chat. Also, this program is being recorded for MCHS folks who are not able to attend. If you do not want your likeness to be recorded, please turn off your camera. For the best viewing, please click the view button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen and select speaker view. And lastly, the wonders of downtown noises in the background can really infiltrate the experience, but no problem. There we go. And lastly, if you are having tech issues, like I said, please let me know in the chat and I can help you out. With that, let me introduce our speaker today. James Heinz is a retired scuba diver and shipwreck enthusiast who has dove many ships in this very presentation here in Milwaukee and Michigan. So I will pass it over to Jim.
Okay, hi there. Let me see if I can get my presentation to come up. Just a moment. Okay, let's go all the way up to the top here. Hello. This is always the hard part. Not what I wanted. Just a moment. There we go. There we go. All right. Can everyone see this? Olivia?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Shipwreck. I was literally working on this to the last moment before I logged in, so we're just going to get started. First of all, I would thank Olivia and MCHS for the very professional way in which they set this up. We had a tech check ahead of time. They gave me instructions. Ask if you can show up and leave it up to you. So many of the photographs on this presentation have been taken by these three people: Cal Katharady on the right, Yitka Hanakova in the middle, and Tamara Thompson. So we're going to start out at the top of the map, the Car Ferry Milwaukee, a ghost ship of the Great Lakes. So she was a train ferry that served, launched in 1902. In 1909, she's bought by the Grand Trunk Milwaukee Car Ferry Company. She shuttles railroad cars back and forth from Milwaukee to the Grand Trunk Railway's dock in Grand Haven, and she's horn-ported in Milwaukee on the KK River. This is how she would have worked. She would have backed into the dock. The railroad tracks on the car deck would line up with the tracks on the land. You would roll the cars in, and on the other destination, you would roll them out. And the car ferry dock she used is not the one on Jones Island on the west side, but the one on the KK River. In the upper left of this picture, that's where Barnacle Buds would be, if you know where that is, and the marina. Okay, October 22nd, 1929, the greatest freshwater blow in 16 years. 50-mile-an-hour winds, 20-foot waves. Two of the sailors thought the weather was so bad the ship would not sail. She did. This is the captain, Robert Badweather Bob McKay. Note to self, if you get on board a ship whose captain Badweather Bob, get off the ship. Around 2 p.m. that day, she sails off on Lake Michigan. Last seen passing by the lightship 3 miles offshore. She did not have radio, and it was routine for the car ferries to go out in the worst weather, and the ship was never seen again. Okay, 1972, shipwreck hunters John Steele and Kent Richard found her. They were sailing up to the north part. They are and their sonar set on, and by coincidence, they go right over the top of the Milwaukee, and they hit a big target. So the wreck lies on 125 feet of water off Whitefish Bay, and 6 miles north of Milwaukee and 3 miles offshore. It sits upright and bottom. The superstructure is about 100 feet east of the hull. The bow faces southwest. These are photographs of the bow, you can see. The dark patches on the bottom of the lake are zebra or quagga mussels. This is another picture of the bow. The mushroom-shaped structure is what's called the capstan, used for winching in ropes and lines. The kind of broken off from the rest of the ship. You can see in the upper part of the picture. The rest of the ship doesn't seem to be there, but it is just a few feet out of the visibility. So another picture of the bow. You'll note the portholes on the left. Picture on the right is the portholes viewed from the inside, and the structure, the tubular thing, that's the anchor windlass. So basically what happens is some of the 27 railroad cars in the ship's hold came loose, the ferry's sea gate. This failure enabled water to come in through the stern and sink the ship. The captain apparently turned back for Milwaukee but never made it. How do we know that? Note in a box. The ship's message case is found floating near Grand Haven with a final message. October 2nd, 1929, 8:30 p.m. Ship is making water fast. We have turned around, headed for Milwaukee. Pumps are working, but Seagate is bent in and can't keep the water out. Flicker is flooded. The Flicker is cruise compartment below the car deck. Seas are tremendous. Things look bad. Signed by the purser. When one of the bodies was found, his watch had stopped at 9:30. So the ship would stay afloat for about another hour. This is the Seagate on the modern ferry Badger. This thing raises and lowers so that water can't come in to the car deck through the stern. This is a picture of Milwaukee with her Seagate in the closed. So when it was found, the stern gate is all twisted like a pretzel. It appears the crew was trying to rig something aft to secure a loose boxcar. There are cables draped around the stern, and some great big jacks are back there. Looks like this that used to be a straight piece of metal, and it is twisted exactly like a pretzel. And when I was a diver, I was in this exact same spot that you're looking at now. Another picture of the Seagate, again bent like a pretzel. The on the left that sort of stick up from the deck, those are the ends of the railroad tracks. So it turns out that rail cars failed, slide violently, and punch a hole in the Seagate. Supposed to use chains but the crew apparently didn't do that. They're still hanging in their storage racks. So again, these are the railroad tracks. We're looking forward now. And here we have the starboard propeller. And what is that under the propeller shaft? That is a railroad car wheel assembly called. Basically, what happens is the ship pitches up at the bow, the car slides off the deck into the lake, and the ship comes down on top of it, crushing it where they remain today. This is another ship. You can see the port. Now, the Milwaukee had a pilot house. The pilot house is the structure with the windows at the very top. As you can see, the below bridge. And what happens when the ship goes down by the stern, that car deck fills with air, and that just pops the whole pilot house off. It's lying 75 feet off the port side of the hull. And how do we know that? Because there it is. To zoom closer, we can see this is the pilot Another picture of the pilot house. How can we be certain it's the Milwaukee? The name is on the. And there she is looking back. Actually, that's just an ROV. Okay, she'd been loaded earlier that day with 27 rail cars, including bathtubs from the Kohler Company and Nash Automobile. Of course, the cargo there. Some of the stern boxcars are missing. We know where one of them is. It's laying under the port propeller shaft. We just saw that. Sorry, starboard propeller shaft. And one is sideways on the deck. This is a railroad car. You can see it has been damaged. The wreck is knocked the boxcar off the wheel assembly. Here's another picture of the deck. You can see it's falling apart. I want you to notice there's this sort of ribbed structure on the side of the ship, and we'll come to that in a moment. And what are these? These are the company. They're still there. I have dove on the wreck. I have dove past this boxcar, and you can see that porcelain white in the darkness. And these are the Nash automobiles. They are still there inside a boxcar that is decomposed. This is a sonar picture of the wreck. The black dots with the thing sticking out of them, those are sonar transponders that are dropped near the wreck. This is a portrait made with sound, not light. And if you look at the top, about the middle of the ship, you can see the ribbed structure that I referred to earlier. That is the side of the ship that's falling off. Those ribs, the outer plates. If you look at the lower left picture, you can see the box with the semicircle. That's the superstructure laying there. At the extreme right of the ship, screen, you can see some lines on the deck, and those are the railroad tracks. So there's an anchor from the SS Milwaukee. I passed it without knowing it. And the bell and engine room telegraph can be seen at the North Point Light Station. The crew launched lifeboats. 52 people were lost. 15 bodies were recovered. The watch stopped at 9:35. Basically, a lifeboat containing 4 dead crew members was found floating near Holland, Michigan, on the other side of the lake. Others were found near Kenosha, shattering all the wreckage. Confusion, the ship had been lost. The lifeboat near Holland, Michigan, play in Port Washington at the 1860 Light Station and Museum. This is the lifeboat in question on display, and this is a picture of it. There's a historical marker in the 3rd Ward. She has that's almost identical to Milwaukee and Manistee, and it was episode of the History Channel's. So let's go to the propeller. She foundered 50 miles northeast of Milwaukee on January 30th, 1881. Milwaukee, but apparently she hit that punched a 1-foot hole in the port. Water floods in, pumps can't handle it. Boiler fires out when that the pumps. So then the P-26 were able to get off the ship's and reach Milwaukee. This is a reconstruction of the ship. I'm sorry, this is a computer generated reconstruction of the ship. We're going to start in the upper right corner. That's where the our way back towards the. This is the bow. You can see looking aft the rest of the wreck, and the tubular structure in the foreground in the bow. We can see it in this picture as well. Is the anchor windlass. This is what winched up the anchors. As we swim aft, we can see that some of the decking is still intact. Some of it has collapsed sort of as a unit. And so we're going to continue to swim aft here. 2 tubular structures sticking out of the deck. Another view of it from higher above, sort of an aerial view. And these 2 structures are the one furthest from us is the ship's boiler, and the one closest to us is the ship's engine. And the boiler is big enough that a diver can go inside. And again, you can see the engine from the boiler running to the engine, and what's left of the stern cabin in the rear at the top of the picture. So we're going to swim aft to And we're going to go under what's left of the stern decking. And here we are under there, looking around. And we pop up, and there's another capstan used for winching in lines and ropes. And here's a diver posing at the capstan. And here is the stern of the vessel with the rudder turned sharply to starboard. Okay, the Appomattox was the largest ship of her kind, 319 feet long. They have a problem. Ships that long start to bend because wood is flexible. And so what they do is they use steel cross bracing and other attached to the wood can make the ship longer by strengthening the wood with steel plates. This is the steamer Appomattox. And November 2nd, she's towing a barge down the west shore of Lake Michigan when she encounters a dark bank of dense industrial smoke. If you think pollution is bad today, it was really bad back then. She runs ashore near North Point. The crew is rescued. They try to save the Appomattox, but she does not float free. She missed these things. They're called range lights because of the fog and because of the industrial smoke. They are a pair of light beacons used in navigation to indicate a safe passage. It consists of two lights that are separated in distance and elevation. So when they are lined with one above the other, they provide a safe bearing into a harbor. These are the range lights at Bailey's Harbor. When the light in the back is directly above the light in the front, you know you're sailing on the correct course. And the breaks up in the surf. Weather gets worse. They spend several weeks trying to salvage her, but eventually they abandon her, although they will later salvage the machinery. So where is she? Well, basically, she's off Capitol Drive. In the lower right there, lower left rather, you can see the X. That's Capitol Drive. This is Atwater Beach in Shorewood, and she's about 200 yards east of the north T-shaped erosion control structure at the top of the picture. You can actually swim out there on a nice day. There's an historical marker for her there. This is what it says, but I'm going to move on. She's in 15 to 20 feet water, 150 yards off Atwater Beach. Basically, all the waves and the ice got done with her is a 250-foot section of the bottom of the ship, the lower bilge. There's a side of the port hull that just fell over to the side, and her propeller is also there. This again, side scan, uh, portrait of the wreck taken with sound rather than light. This is a diagram of the wreck. Again, you're looking at the bottom of the ship, and the section on the below that, as you look at it, says port side. That is the port side. It just fell off the side of ship, or what we call open. So here we are in 15 to 20 feet. This is her capstan. And here we are swimming along the ship. I did dive this ship as well as the Milwaukee. The structures on the left are what are called knee. That is what the side of the ship is bolted to the bottom of the ship with. And you also saw that on that section I showed you that was falling off the side. And here we have steel plates bolted to one of the keel timbers that are an effort to enable them to build a larger wooden ship. Here we are swimming over her. And this is the ship's. So, a fireboat on fire, MFD 23. She's the third fireboat for the city of Milwaukee, named after an assistant chief who died while fighting a fire. Built in 1896 at Sturgeon Bay. Her name was changed to MFD 23 in 1901. She was usually docked at the Cherry Street Bridge. Why did they change the name to a number? Politics. There was already one boat named for a German, one named for an Irishman. It was time to call halt before either faction became outnumbered. Chief Foley settled the matter by wiping out all the fireboat names and giving them numbers. Those days, you used to have separate all Irish, all Polish, and all German firehouses because that's what we call ethnic conflict. By 1922, she's in bad shape. She's stripped of her major equipment. She's towed out into Lake, set on fire, and sunk in deep water off of Milwaukee. A fireboat on fire. How ironic. She's discovered by Jerry Geyer in 2005 in 72 feet of water, sitting upright. Both starboard side light vessel's hull, like the Apple wreck, has simply filleted itself open. Stern area has collapsed, rudder's lying on its port side, and the propeller lies in the lake bottom with one blade embedded in the lake. This is a photogrammetric survey of her. It's a little hard to read, but the following diagram shows it pretty well. The bows are to your right. You can see the sides have fallen away. Boilers, I believe one, the ship's engine, boiler 2, and then boiler 1 is connected to the pump. And then you can see these two circular water cannon mountings in the very center, which you will see. And here we are. These are the water mountings up at the top of the picture, the sort of sides with 3 circles on them. To them, this is the stern. You can see the propeller buried in the mud. My friend Kim Stobelfeld took the photos and surveyed the wreck and produced an archaeological survey of the wreck. So there's MFD 17, built in Sheboygan. She was named the James Foley. She was placed into reserve status in 1922, and then in 1930, towed out into the lake and scuttled. This is MFD 17. You can see it says she's James Foley, the world's fire department. Yeah, she's towed out in 1930 and scuttled. The steam engine was still in the boat when she was scuttled. A computation of the wreck today, discovered last year, I believe. You can see the boilers at the top left, and then the other 3 sort of cubicle structures, I believe those are the engines and the pumps. So this is her today. You can see in the background the boilers. This is from the bow looking backward. And here we have on the left, we're looking backward. Those 2, again, the cubicle pumps. Picture on the right shows her. You can see the big slot at the bottom is where they shovel the coal in. If you look closely on top of it, there's this sort of tube side. That is another boiler. I believe that is for the pumps. Here we have when the boiler, and that pipe connects to what I think is the engine or one of the pumps. I'm sorry, I'm not an expert on 19th century steam technology. And then we have a picture here showing either pumps or engines. I'm sorry, I don't know which. I think the thing with the circle is probably a pump, but I don't know. So, shipwrecks of the KK River. Tug Edward E. Gillen, number 1, originally built as the J.J. Hagerman, and she's sold to the Gillen Company, used as a dredge tug, and she's renamed Edward E. Gillen in 1915. That's her in the foreground, with a Milwaukee fireboat in the back. And you saw this wreck all the time when you drove up 894. She was stripped and abandoned in the KK River in the 1960s, right here in this angle. And when I drove to work at UWM every day to see her, she had been a tree growing out of her. She was unfortunately removed by the Corps of Engineers in 2008. Her replacement was the Edward E. Gillen, which was originally built as the Erastus C. Knight. She's renamed in 1964 after the tug we just saw is abandoned in the KK River. This is her as the Erastus C. Knight. She capsizes June 14th, 1984, while conducting cable testing exercises with the Coast Guard icebreaker West Wind. The West Wind apparently moves, pulls the Gillen underwater. Her crew are able to get off the ship before it sinks. Descends 7 minutes and 48. This is the Edward E. Gillen, number 2, when she sank. Notice the name board on the side. We'll see that again in a minute. This is the Edward E. Gillen, number 2, as she lies today. When I dove this wreck, as you descend the down line, she's still leaking drops of diesel fuel that come up and hit you in the face. Another picture of her today. Another picture of her today. Another picture. And that is her name board photograph in the sort of secret museum we have at the Wisconsin Marine Historical Society inside the public library. So one ship, there may or may not be a wreck. The Spanish gunboat Sandoval, built in 18, captured by the U.S. Navy, Spanish-American War, Naval Academy. She sold in 1918 to a Milwaukee shipowner named Charles Neff. She supposedly sold to Charles Tim in 1929. Well, 1929, people run out of money for yachts. She's abandoned at the Beecher Street Bridge, and she sinks because boys stole all the available brass fittings, including the seacocks. She lists and sank. The half-submerged hulk was an irresistible attraction for adventurous Southside children. Games on it, they jumped off it, and some of them drowned. This is the Sandoval at the Beecher Street Bridge in 1935. The structure on the raft next to her is not a, looks like a horse raft, as we can see her in this other picture. In 1935, they're trying to salvage her and pump her out. What happened to her, we don't really know, but Neff's daughter said that this out in Lake Michigan and scuttled her to clear a hazard in navigation. Southside claimed that she was still there. You could see her times of low water. They described her as a pleasure craft for Spanish royalty. But in 2020, a side scan sonar revealed she's not there. She's just gone. This is the LR Doty. She was a Great Lakes steamship. She was last seen afloat October 2nd, 1898, north of Milwaukee, during a violent storm with 70-mile-an-hour winds. She was towing the schooner Olive Jeanette. And when she tow line broke, the Doty tried to turn around to go back to get the schooner, but her rudder sank. The schooner survived. This is the Olive Jeanette. And in 1991, a commercial fish tug on something 20 miles from shore in 300 feet of water, and he tells Milwaukee charter boat captain Jerry Geyer about it. He's able to go out there and imaged it with a fish finder, revealing a large object on the bottom. This is Jerry Geyer and his boat. He still conducts diving tours from the Milwaukee River. And there are of the Doty. You can see that's not a rock. So in the 1990s, marine historian Brendan Baylod does research on this, and then charter goes out to try and find it. This is Brendan Baylod and Yitka Hanakova. Yitka relocates the site and gets a good GPS position on it, and then drops markers and does a sonar outline of the wreck of the type you've seen before. And this is it. Again, this is a picture taken with sound, not light. The dark shadow is just that. It's an acoustic shadow. It is the same far as a shadow from sunlight. You can see the ship is almost completely intact. You can see the hatch covers. The bow is at the lower end of the raft. So this is a reconstruction of her. We know it's her because it says so on the stern, LR Doty. So we're going to start at the stern and work our way forward. You can see the rudder cannot normally be because the rudder chain has broken. Lifeboats bottom of the lake to the left. And on the stern, you'll see those sort of lumpy stuff. What is that? That is clay. When she hit the bottom stern first, clay was driven up from the bottom and came to rest on the deck. So now we're going to swim forward. We're swimming over the top of the engine room. These are the top of the cylinder heads for her steam engine. And so we're going to swim forward along the left side of the stern deck house. There we're going down the side. Down the side. Come out, and there's a wheelbarrow still stuck on the deck. And swimming forward, we find the funnel. the ship's smokestack laying on the deck. And when we swim all the way up to the bow, we find the anchor windlass. And this was actually the subject of a National Geographic. So, Milwaukee's favorite shipwreck, the Prince Willem V. Another view of her. She's a Dutch diesel freighter. October 14th, 1954, she departs Milwaukee. She hits the towing cable of an oil barge, and the cable does not break, it bends. And when it bends, the oil barge swings down like a pendulum and punches into the side of the Prince Wilhelm, putting a hole in the starboard side that floods the engine room. Lose the engine room, lose the pumps. The crew is all rescued, no one dies. This is the oil barge after the wreckage is deemed a hazard to navigation because part of her sticks up above the 40-foot line. The Corps has a policy that all obstructions will be removed to allow 40 feet of water from the obstruction to the surface so that she over it, especially because she sank right in the main shipping channel in and out of Milwaukee Harbor. So a man named Max Knoll won the bid at $50,000. The work takes 20 minutes because he goes down and discovers there's only two parts of the ship that are sticking up above the 40-foot line. One is the gangway on the port side. He cuts that loose, it over the side, and then he closes the pilot house door. He has now fulfilled the contract. He made $50,000 in 1954 money for 20 minutes work. The Corps of Engineers is not amused. They take him to court. He wins. He not only gets the $50,000, he wants to raise and make money by selling an intact ship. Who is Max Knoll? He was born in 1910 in Milwaukee. He's sort of the Jacques Cousteau of his day. Graduates from MIT. He was a pioneer in underwater diving, underwater salvage work, photography, filming for the movies. He worked on decompression chamber, studying decompression tanker sickness known as the bends, of which I have had 3 episodes, which is why I don't dive anymore. And when we get done, if you're interested, I can tell you how he enabled me to be 3 degrees of separation from Michael Jackson. So this is Max. His autobiography was published this year. Again, his family came from Fox Point. My grandmother's sister worked for them as a maid when she came to America, and Max lived across the. So he helped establish the Desco Corporation, which still builds this old copper diving helmet equipment on display at Discovery World. Desco made the diving equipment in the movie Men of Honor, directed by Milwaukee and George Tillman. And his sister was Fox Point artist Mary Knoll, also known as the Witch of Beach Road. So Max does not live because he dies in a 2-car head-on collision outside of Bill Clinton's hometown of Hope, Arkansas, that claimed the life of his wife and the driver of the other car, West pop singer Jesse Belvin. Belvin had been receiving death threats because he had conducted the first outdoor free interracial concert in the history of Little Rock, Arkansas, and he received death threats from the KKK. This is an article about that. If you look down at the bottom, it says they crashed into a car driven by Max Knoll of Milwaukee. Knoll and his wife were killed. So after his death, his estate sold the vessel at auction as it is at the bottom of the lake. Another company tried to raise it and they failed. So they sold it back to his trust for liability reasons. This is an auction notice for the Prince Wilhelm. It's without question the most visited shipwreck in Wisconsin. It makes the list of the top 5 dive sites in the United States. And ironically, 5 divers have died on it, on a shipwreck that nobody died on when it went down. So it's mostly intact, resting on its right side in about 80 feet of water. All of its cargo is still there. There are pontoons used in a salvage attempt laying there. This was my first Great Lakes wreck dive and my last Great Lakes wreck dive. Got my 3rd and final episode of the bends on this ship. So this is a photogrammetric photo of her. You notice in the foreground, full of some kind, and she's directly in front of the outflow from the Milwaukee River through the middle gap of the breakwater, and the wreck and swirling around her have dug a hole about 10 feet deep. So she's actually now in 90 feet of water instead of 80 feet of water. So now we're going to take a tour of her. We're going to start out at the stern. And we know it's her Wilhelm Rotterdam on the side, or on the back, on the stern. So here we are swimming forward along the port side. And you'll notice the ship has these masts that are used for loading and unloading cargo. And they're still there as well. Max is holding a model of the ship, that's him on the left. And he planned to use World War II rubber army bridge pontoons to bags. He would put those in there, inflate them, and then they would lift the ship up off the bottom. And we know that didn't work because these bag-like structures you see in this picture are the remains of those pontoons. So we swim forward over the engine room skylight. We're looking down into the skylight. I've been where this diver has been. Here the diver is. He's about to go through the open window of the skylight. And these are the cylinder heads of the ship's engines. Where this diver is, graph is taken. So we're going to swim forward now. You can see on the left, the ship is lying on her side, 90-degree angle. On the right, you can see some of the cargo is still in the holds. Again, she is lying on her side. I have swum through these bridge windows. Another picture of the bridge windows. Swimming forward, we come to the bow, and there the structure is the anchor windlass. Moving further south, a ship you can visit on dry land, Lightship 57, built in Toledo in 1891. She was moored out in the lake to avoid having to the expense of building a fixed lighthouse. With clusters of 3 oil-burning lanterns onto each masthead. This is her. You can see at the top, they're called squirrel cages. And on the side, that is both her number, and Gray's Reef is where she was located. She was stationed, which is 18 miles west of the Mackinac Bridge in northeastern Lake Michigan, to mark the reef so that ships wouldn't run into the reef. 1920, taken to Milwaukee. It's discovered she's too expensive to repair. So she's stripped, used as a barge, and then sold in 1924. She's sold to a scrap dealer. He removes the pig iron ballast in the bottom of the ship. And then she's moored in a slip at First and Canal Street. The Unknown Pleasure Club was a social club of young Bayview men who raised money to buy the hulk to use as a clubhouse, as an alternative to the oh-so-snooty South Shore Yacht Club. 1928, they purchased her, had her towed to Milwaukee's lakefront just north of the South Shore Yacht Club. This is the Unknown Pleasure Club clubhouse. The kid upper left of the photograph, he's saying, "I'm the king of the world." 1929, the Milwaukee and the stock market aren't the only things that are going down. Probably the same story sinks the Lightship 57. But for years, when the water level was low on a calm day, you could see the timber frame of the ship from the bluff just west of where she lay. Her prop was cut off in the winter of 1950s, and she's on display now at that's on display at the South Shore Yacht Club. And this is where she is today. She's buried under what is now Cupertino Park. When they filled in the lakefront, they buried her. She's gone, but not forgotten. She's commemorated with a Sprecher beer. Milwaukee, and we commemorate everything with beer. So, a shipwreck you can walk across, the schooner Lily E. 1915, she's towed to Milwaukee, where she spends her time as the South Shore house. Eventually, she's an old ship. Her joints open, and she just settles to the bottom. They decided to leave her in place. She's not worth salvaging. They burned her to remove an obstruction. This is the Lily E as the South Shore Yacht Club's clubhouse. You can even see it says on the South Shore Yacht Club. And eventually the city filled in the lakefront, and now the Lily E lies under the parking lot, apparently, of the South Shore Yacht. Her bow is under the gate, which means the rest of her is under the parking lot there. Now we're going to talk about the wreck of the dredge number 6. 685-ton dredge is used for harbor excavations. Which is a steel hull with a main deck with a wooden superstructure, which was not constructed to withstand rough weather on the open lake. She's under the command of Captain Martin Walsh. She's engaged in dredging in Lake Michigan near Oak Creek, approximately 11 miles south of Milwaukee. May 23rd, 1956. Wind picks up again, 55 mile-an-hour wind. They decide to tow her to Milwaukee by this tugboat, the James Heinz. The wind worsens, the dredge begins to ship water and list. A guy wire holding up the dipper boom parted, and the vessel capsized and sank. The lifeboat is not launched. The crew of the tug only noticed that she had sunk because the lights were gone and the tow line is angled down underwater. Coast Guard investigation found fault with Captain Walsh for not transferring the 19 crew members to shore at Oak Creek. Journal article on the sinking of the dredge. This is a diagram of the dredge, and I want you to look carefully. See those two vertical structures? Those are called or down dog legs. They are driven into the bottom when the ship is working to hold her in place. I also want you to look at to the right, to the dipper boom and the, I don't know what you would call it, the skeletal gantry that lifts and raises it. When the ship is being towed, the spuds or dog legs are in the up position. They were in that up position when she rolled over and she sank basically like this. They're locked into position, so when they roll over, the dog legs are now holding the ship up off the bottom upside down. So she kind of, and we will see that pictures in a few moments. As we descend, this is the bottom of one of the dog legs. Another picture of it. We go down, you can see the bottom of the hull of the dredge. This is a picture of the bottom of the hull. And as we go down, you begin to see the dog is holding the wreck up off the bottom. The picture on the right shows it best. You can see the bottom of the ship, what is actually the deck of the ship, is some distance above the bottom. And we can see that big wheel we saw in the diagram, and in the background you can again see how the dog leg is holding the ship up. You can swim under the shipwreck. First diver to find box bolted to the deck with. He opened the door and all the heavy tools came out and hit him on the head because everything is upside down on the shipwreck. You swim past here. This is a big reel of the cable that was used. And looking out, we winding wheel and swimming out background. You can see, I don't know what that structure is called, what I refer to as the skeletal arm. This is the clearest picture that shows you how the ship is being kept up off the bottom. And to the right, you can see this, whatever it is. And we're swimming towards it. Ship is in the background. We're coming to this thing. And then we're going to swim out along it to the dipper boom here. And this is a subject of a Channel 10 documentary. Now we'll discuss the schooner southeast of Milwaukee. So she's in was that 190 feet of water? I'm sorry, 205 feet of water on an even keel, totally intact, which is unusual. Usually, as we saw with the Milwaukee, when the ship goes down, compressed air fills the superstructure as a unit. Wheel compass and port light are on display at the North Point Lighthouse in Milwaukee. This again is a computer reconstruction of. We'll start at the bow, which is in the upper right corner. This is the bow. You can see the anchors are still in place. We're going to swim aft, and we come to. This is the hole that sank the ship. This is another view of the hull. And we're going to continue to swim aft. There's a capstan in the lower part of this picture. Beyond that are hatches. You can see the one hatch still has its covers in place. And this sort of square thing that sticks up is called a bit, which is lines are tied to it. This is a bit here. You can see that to the right, you can see what's left of the stern cabin. Here's a picture of it. Another picture of it. And another picture of it. Here we are back at the stern. And there's the rudder. There's an exhibit of her artifacts at the Wisconsin Maritime Museum. Now, this is the original Milwaukee Harbor in 1836. Originally, the river exits to the lake at where the Coast Guard station is now. And you can see on the left, the original shoreline has actually receded. It has actually moved away. On the right, you can see, if you look sort of the middle there of what is now Jones Island, you can see some kind of a structure sticking out into the lake. That is, again, if you see just to the right of the N in Michigan, it says Old Channel. That was a channel that was cut by the federal government to enable ships to come in and out of the harbor more easily. It's in about the middle of what Jones Island is now. And then they built these piers out into the lake from being washed into the cut they had made by storms. And at the end of it is a light, and that will be important in moments. The Sidewheeler Sebastopol is built in 1855 for $65,000. She's got side wheelers 30 feet. 17th, 1855, she arrives in the middle of a fierce northeast storm. This is more or less what she would have looked like. This is not her, but you can see the paddle wheels, and I want you to notice there's a wooden arch that starts to the left of the paddle wheels, behind the paddle wheel, hogging arches to prevent the wooden ship from bending at the ends, just like we discussed with the Appomattox. They provide the same purpose as the arches on the Hone Bridge. So this is from the Milwaukee Sentinel. She comes on towards her destination. She's got a crew of 30 and 60 passengers. The night was dark, and there seems to have been no light upon the government pier that I just showed you. She mistook a light on the schooner Rockwell for the pier light. The captain follows the deceitful light. Ship runs aground 3 miles south of the government pier. She swings around broadside on and starts smashing into her. She's stuck on the bottom with people sitting in the ship all night while the storms rage over there. Around daylight, the captain takes the small lifeboat ashore. The boat gets halfway to shore when it's upset by a wave. 3 of the crew are drowned. The captain and others got ashore and carried a line 50 feet up the steep bank, which they tied to a stump in the field. This line goes back to the ship. The crew does not perform well. They got drunk. That's what they did. We found it difficult to obtain the names of the lost because a number of the crew were too drunk to know their own names, much less to tell those of others. Now, life-saving then was like volunteer firefighting. There is no Coast Guard or even a life-saving service. There's the revenue. What they do is the federal government equipment to local communities, and they're supposed to rescue efforts. Guys who aren't trained, equipment gets lost, missing, stolen. The crews couldn't be counted on or even located in the event of an emergency, but that's the way they do it in the 1850s. Well, the rescuers arrived around 8:38. We found Captain Watts in the field overlooking the wreck in a state of great anxiety because his wife and 4 children were aboard. Near town, we met others with the life-saving boat on wheels, urging their horses along as possible. The type of lifeboat they used, it's actually made out of metal and on wheels. People harness horses or even drag it by to the scene where it is needed. And the system works this time. By the time the boat reaches the site, there are 200 or 300 people in hand ready to render assistance. Boats lowered down the bank, fixed to the cable, excuse me one moment, that the captain had brought ashore. and her gallant crew pushes off on her errand. The community pitches in to help the rescuers. Proceeds until it reaches the steamer. Women and children are loaded aboard. Boat starts coming back to shore. 100 men were in the surf up to their armpits. They lifted the boat and carried it safely to shore, where the passengers were lifted out and taken away. Most of the people were saved, but not the horses. Most of the horses refused to jump off the ship. By 12 o'clock, all the surviving passengers and crew were ashore. 5 people drowned. They couldn't save the horses. The ship's merchandise is washed down the beach for like 2 or 3 miles, and of course, people are stealing it. However, a dog that remained aboard was taken off and brought ashore in the trips of the lifeboat. Wreck site. It's in about 50 feet of water. Merchandise on there. And you can dig around in the sand and find it. This is what the wreck looks like today. The here was again just like the Sandoval. Its owners abandoned it in Beecher Street and sold it to a non to have to get rid of, which they did. They towed it out a half mile south of the South Shore bathing beach and set her on fire. Abandoned KK River Lake and scuttled by burning. It's like deja vu all over again. This is a picture of her. The dive site, she's actually on both sides of the breakwater. They built the breakwater across her. She's in 15 feet of water, and there's quite a bit of, if you are interested. Okay, the shipwreck. This shipwreck. The British freighter Fotinia runs aground off St. Francis, May 13th, 1978. 58-mile-an-hour winds push her anchors drag across the lake and shore near the former lakeside power plant. This is her aground off the lakeshore power plant. The garage freighter did draw a crowd. St. Francis police estimated that several thousand people came down to see her stuck in the mud. This is a picture of people watching her. Notice the kid on the left who apparently can't read. They tried 4 times to pull her off of that. They tow her to Bay Shipbuilding in Sturgeon Bay. These are pictures of her being salvaged. Tugs pulling and pushing. Eventually, they discover she's damaged, repaired, so she's scrapped. Trust me, these guys are on me. I have other stories, including famous people who lived in Milwaukee. Now, a word from our sponsors. Join the Society for more thrilling tales of nautical adventure. And now the slide you've all been waiting for. This is the... Any questions? Have any questions, do you? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. That was really interesting and a ton of great photos. It's wild to see ships above and then below. So, folks, I'm going to call on you. I will allocate about 10 minutes for questions and answers.
Can you excuse me just a moment? Someone my doorbell.
Go for it.
Yeah. All right. I'll be right back while you work on the questions.
No worries. Give us some time for folks to type into the chat, and I will facilitate those to Jim.
Okay, I'm back. was my neighbor inviting me to his birthday party tomorrow.
Got some good stories to share.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, he doesn't speak English real well, so. But to go ahead.
Google AI for all kinds of translation help. Everybody, I'm going to do one last call for questions in the chat. I will include Jim's email in our follow-up email with everybody. It's also been put in the chat right now if you do have questions that come up later on. It's a great resource. And I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody for attending today. And thank you specifically to Jim, our speaker, for a wonderful presentation. Please stay tuned for more of our upcoming programs. Our next virtual Lunch and Learn program will be in October on the 17th. And that's going to be a genealogy workshop specifically focusing on Civil War soldiers and their family connections and family tree resources. You can register for that online in the next week. We also have some great programs coming up next week. We have trivia hosted at Von Trier, so come join us out for some Milwaukee history trivia. We go around each month to different restaurants, pubs in the area, and keep it local. And then we also share some fun Milwaukee history trivia with prizes, of course. Who doesn't love prize? And that is on Wednesday, September 24th. And then Thursday, September 25th, we have a beautiful Echoes of Hope performance in tandem with the Violins of Hope Wisconsin residency going on here in our community. And that is going to be a performance by the Concord Chamber Orchestra, focusing on Jewish klezmer pieces. And there's going to be a talk back with the performers and our conductor as well throughout the performance. You can find tickets for that online on our website, on our socials, and in your inbox if you're subscribed to our e-newsletter. Tickets are $15, and for members get a $5 discount. Those are $10 for the ticket. The event starts at 6 p.m. on Thursday, September 25th. And one last thing to let you guys know, we do have a brand new rollout of our membership program. Just got a little facelift and has some really great benefits to include, so please check that out. All that information can be found on our website. That's milwaukeehistory.net. And I am going to ask you all to maybe fill out a lovely little survey for us. Let us know how we did. Let us know how you like our presentations. And if you have any ideas, there's a open text box in the bottom there to let us know of particular topics you may be interested in. So thank you very much for that. And if you'd like to support more, see more programs like this one, please consider supporting the Milwaukee County Historical Society. We recognize that Milwaukee history spans across diverse communities, ethnicities, cultures. So we hope to continue bringing us all together through these programs. And again, thank you guys for coming today. And thank you, Jim, very much for your presentation. Thank you, and have a good rest of your Friday.